a lot of money.
That's how they care what's happening. That's how you get your social media followers, your lists for e-blast. We have more than, well, I didn't realize it was 400, but we have email addresses for a lot of people already, but not all those people are necessarily living local. But you know what, Judy? They're going to give money. They are. They just are. We know that it's a generous community, and we know that those roots run deep. And so I like, from even just I don't know what you'd call it. Like, for the facility to be a success in the long run, we have to put our skin in the game. We have to be involved. And I've thought about, like, what would be, my son, my eldest son, he asked me on the phone, he said, well, how much has anybody ever raised for anything in Dundalk? Now, I know we raised a lot for the hospital, but it is in the hospital. So I think we're open to discussions on email.
Okay, one thing I was going to say is that I think that historically, as we've compared to other municipalities who've taken on similar projects of having a municipally owned building run by a board of directors and managed by volunteers, I think that format specifically is the success story here. I think when you leave up to township alone to carry forth a project like this, that's just too wide of something for them to actually take on. And I think nothing against municipalities. I don't. As success. To put that well, also to give an example with been over the but all I can say is if staff had a yes on this project and were able to move the grant and donor to our project, we would only be fundraising after those two are applied $250,000. And I know for a fact that we would have absolutely no problem getting that money. So it's more if we have a yes from everyone, if we're all working together, if we're all on board together, staff, council, and the community, I know that this is a win and I know we're going to get the money.
Oh, just one specific example is that I was speaking with some people who are involved in education, have a really, like if something's going to benefit the youth, this is a direct quote, there will be a lot of money available.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from council? Barb.
So, thank you very much. Thank you all for coming out. We've never had the room so full, I don't think. I just wanted to ask on your Cultural Hub and Arts operating budget. I think the Dundalk Little Theatre, if I do my math, it should be 1,800, 900 times twice a year. And would that include their
about in terms like we're planning. But the thing is that I've always heard the advice that, you know, be conservative in your revenues and, you know, so we're not fighting right now against the L&A goal in everything number, because that's where we want to be thinking. But on this, we're already, as I said, year one with the movie use, it's like generating 100,000 with expense 112, and I took 2/3 of what they're doing in Palmerston. I actually think because of the novelty, will be right up there, and I've heard that the lull is more at 3 to 5 years out, and then you have to get invented. But like at 5 years, it's 130, just about 133,000, and those expenses, 112, would just rise with inflation. So,
Thank you. Jason?
Thanks everybody for coming out. I just want to echo Brian's comments. It's a very tough decision we've had to make. I think it should have been made before now. Personally, some of the numbers here are seem a little high to me. I'm not saying right now I'm against it. We're dealing with the whole township's taxpayers. It means this, we have to
I'm just going to do, but and I think we already are seeing in the sense, but those are costs to young people who are alone in a room, who become isolated, or who get together with other people and get into stuff that is not quite as creative and life-giving. And so the costs, I would just like to think of social costs and policing costs, actually, as well.
Thank you. Barb?
Chair. So in looking at the usage, and I mean, you're thinking of event rentals, catered weddings, and things like that. Amongst your group, is there anyone who's come up with a conceptual design on what the space would look like? Like, we know the theater is going to be the theater, and there's structural things that have to happen up there. But the lower level, provided that, you know, I mean, we also have to decide or make a decision on where we place our tenants. One we already have a destination for, and that we would have to consider that. But is there a conceptual drawing?
In front of us. To move up with other to the fact put the as well washrooms on the addition on the back. We wouldn't lose the floor space for rentals or the auditorium and the stage. So that's something to think of. You know, it's not, I mean, there's no design for the building yet. So this is if it's a yes moving forward, but we can put the air conditioning and heating units and all that kind of stuff on the flat roof of the addition, and then that way we don't have to worry about doing anything to the foundation in the basement or worrying about adding space somewhere, you know, in there. So that's just I think, a smart idea for space, which is kind of a side note.
Thank you.
I'm kind of betwixt and between on this myself, this issue, but I'm looking at not just the theater, I'm looking at downtown revitalization. There has to be something downtown to get people coming in so the downtown develops. And what better way than having an open building downstairs? I mentioned it in the thing I sent you in today, to have a gallery, to have room for the genealogy department, therefore freeing up library space, not cutting into their budget. And just it's not hard. I know Nate. Without down. Let's say, yeah, they're interested, because the movie nights is your bread and butter, as they say. Once you get that out, you get a gallery downstairs with the artist running it, like any co-op, no staff concerns. Yeah.
Artists are entrepreneurs, and so are all the
Yeah.
people who are going to offer classes. They're all local business people. They're not selling widgets, but they can.
And for music, it's $45 a half hour for music lessons. So if you have 10 kids in that building, you can certainly take a percentage off. Pay it into a reserve if you want, if the board decides that. But as I said, it's going to take time. But as I said, $3 million over 20 years is a lot of money.
Michael?
I just want to thank everybody for coming out, and I look at recreation as a non-win. As taxpayers, no matter if it's the arena or if it's the ball field, it never pays for itself. It's part of the recreation committee. So a theater to me is a different group of people. So as long as the minimum cost, you're going to and it's grant. So yeah, good thing.
Yeah. We've received the permit. The council approved the minutes from the October 2nd, 2019 council and closed session meetings as presented, and the council approved the minutes from the October 9th, 2019 special council meeting as presented. I need a mover, Martin, and a seconder. Brian? Any discussion on those? All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. So we've already voted to move up CAO Report 2019-108, Dundalk Old Town Hall Building Report. So I need, well, lots of words in this one. Yeah, so it is the report, 2019-108. Actually, with everybody here, I'm going to read the resolution so everyone can hear what it is. Be it resolved, the council receives staff report CAO 2019-108 as information, and the council approved through this resolution the decision not to invest any further tax dollars into the Dundalk Old Town Hall based on the restoration cost of restoring the building to be an accessible community facility and occupancy gathering place on the second theater because of upgrade costs over $3 million. And the council agreed that the building upgrade capital cost is excessive and a major challenge to the township's financial capacity based on the consideration of restoration cost estimates from multiple consultant reports. The low historical use of the building as a community facility and events gathering place, the limited use options of the building, the residents' feedback from the Community Action Plan survey results, and the operational cost versus revenue generation potential of the building that would be deficit and require being funded from tax dollars. And that council directs staff to explore future alternate use options for the town hall building to repurpose the use of the facility through partnerships or selling or other uses. So do I have a mover for that? Brian and Martin. Okay. Discussion. Dave, do you want to?
Well, first of all, this is likely one of the most difficult reports I've had to write, because I too have passion in relation to the Old Town Hall. My family have been involved in events there, and I've enjoyed, I think as a little guy watching, I think 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea or some number like that. So there is a lot of history here, but in writing this report, I had to remove that personal passion and look at it from a standpoint of just generally the cost of doing this. We've had multiple reports that basically say it's $3 million minimum and would escalate over time. I know that there's people interested in volunteering their time. Because it's a community facility or a public facility, I mean, this has to be engineered, it has to be done, in a fashion that's inspected and so on by engineers, so we can't just do it maybe like it could done privately. And that's an option too. I mean, is there options? And this report is not at all about not having the facility to use for something. Is there another purpose? One thing we've come across is as a housing facility that could be used and retain the facade, retain the character of the building, but be able to for more residential use, it would be minimal cost to rehabilitate the building, because the carrying capacity of the second floor is a challenge. The Norgan Theater that's being referred to doesn't have that second floor aspect to it. It's an on-grade pretty much facility, I think with a basement underneath it, so it doesn't have those challenges. I mean, if there's reinforcement, it can be done pretty easily from underneath. So, but I mean, we're dealing with the Old Town Hall, and that's what this report is about. To put it in comparison, when you talk to contractors, I know this is a place in the community, but to create a similar cultural facility, another area from a constructed standpoint, the same dimensions of the Old Town Hall, would be more like about $800,000 to $900,000. So that puts it in perspective. The rehabilitation of an existing building is very, very expensive today because of all our rules and regulations that back in the 60s and 70s, we didn't even consider as a problem, but today it is. In our community action plan, it's one of the goals of the action plan is the residents and businesses of Southgate expect the township to plan and adequately provide for public facilities for gathering, recreation, and doing business with the township, while recognizing at the same time the facility needs to change with age and changing population. The first initiative that the Community Action Plan consultant came back with was 4A underneath that action goal 4. The township will have identified growth-related impacts on municipal facilities and will have designated solutions to expand its facilities or develop new facilities as required. And not to complicate it, but it's kind of been brought into this discussion, is the multi-use facility has been something that was discussed previous terms of council and was put into the community development charges bylaw and is now being collected to do that. The report coming later in the evening about the multiple-use facility, I think it's rather timely in that it gives a good comparison of what a robust facility could provide with the gathering hall and with cultural center. The gathering hall could do the same thing as a cultural center with upgrades and so on. I think we need a place. What that place is, the community and council needs to decide. That's not an argument, I don't think, by anyone, that there needs to be a place for these things. And many of the things that we hear that the community wants can be done in a variety of places. It may not have the historical significance of the past, but when we can look at grants that are available, the appetite or the opportunity, I think, for it to fit with some of these grants is much more appropriate when you talk about community hubs and multiple uses, where multiple uses being recreation and all kinds of cultural events, and a community hub that people can come together, do business from a municipal standpoint, and have social services available in one location. So that's the impetus of this new grant. There's two streams, one for new construction and one for rehabilitation. And I know they referred to that rehabilitation in some of the information here. The one thing that they're kind of difficult on in the rehabilitation stream is they're really not into funding structural upgrades. And I'll read exactly from that report, or that funding for eligible projects. It's for renovations and rehabilitation to address functionality. So it has to be functional, not issues that have to be addressed within that funding, not structural issues. I mean, there are functional issues, and definitely needs renovations, but there's structural issues that need to be addressed. And that same funding stream for rehabilitation and renovation can deal with small-scale improvements to address accessibility, handrails, ramps, accessible doors, parking, elevators, wayfinding, and signage. So, and it can also do small new build construction projects for recreation, cultural, and community center infrastructure, such as playing fields, tennis courts, and small community squares. So with that, the report has been written in a fashion that it deals with the upgrade costs of what those are, the project funding options, the future use of the building, and I know there's been a lot of discussion here, but there's been a few shots at promoting the use. There was a board of management that was started years ago and took a shot at that and did some good work, but that ran its course as well. Facility management is an issue, and that would have to be definitely addressed from a standpoint of definitely some staff time involved in that. Some of the alternative uses that are talked about, I know they're talking from a standpoint of cultural activities. Sure, there's many cultural activities that would be great to have in a facility, but I guess it comes at, that comes at a cost if we wanna have, our, facade and heritage, around us when we have these dancing recitals and so on that have been referred to. The operating plan, for sustainable use of the building, we, took a look at that, and, it would need an aggressive approach. We put a bit of a plan in place that, if you went with more aggressive use, we feel the cost would be around $135,000 a year to operate, and revenues, if you're going to make it affordable, revenues would not be as strong as what I would say has been anticipated. And some of the suggestions of I know Councillor DeBreen brought up the revenues related to Dundalk Little Theatre. Those were higher than what is projected in this report, but the junior musical productions would be significantly lower, so I think there would be a wash there. But we took into account some of these SOCAN fees that we do have to pay if you rent movies, and that doesn't matter where they are. It's just, when it comes to future use, we can show movies at a lot of places, and it's just, I guess if I brought the passion into it, yeah, I'd like my grandkids to see a movie in that theater too, but it comes at what cost? And when we compare some of the other investments we've made over time, it's taken a long time to pay off the waste investment, and that was just over $3 million, and we're still paying on that one. So these major investments can't be taken lightly when it comes to, we are, in our community action plans, the previous one was very core at managing taxes at inflation, and I think that's a mandate that we continue to try and strive for. Other than that, I think I'll leave that to questions, and again, not a fun report to write, but when you take into account the dollars and cents and what we can do for similar investments and the fit of what could be done with the ICPI grant, which we'll talk about later. The other piece that I think maybe was kind of pushed aside was a little bit was the survey that the community, and this kind of came as a surprise to me. We got this in our report from the consultant, and there was they did an unbiased survey that they controlled and managed, and it asked the question about the old town hall, and I think it was a bit surprising that 23, I think, out of 114 people had no opinion, and 19 out of 100 and some people, but I think the percentages are actually in the report, suggested, there was more people suggested it should be taken down than should restore the building. And those trended the same pretty much whether it was in the east or the west end of the township. So anyway, a little bit surprising at those numbers, but those were random surveys that we got feedback on, and I think council need to be aware of it.
Thank you. Martin?
Yeah, just looking at the Old Town Hall, number 4 is consistent, but number 4 is only consider repairs to the building if it would be more frequently used, not number 5, tear the building down. And that number 4 is consistent east, west, and in Dundalk.
Yeah.
So there is people who want the building if it's going to be
Well,
reused.
I think if it's going to be more frequently utilized, I mean, without passion in this thing, the best prediction of the future is the past. A board of management has tried to make it happen, and the use has been consistent until such times we had to shut it down because of the safety of the building. I think today the building would still be used at the rates it was back then, but is that enough to justify this investment? And that's for smarter people than me to decide.
Martin?
Just one more, Dave. You
Yep.
mentioned, in the wording for the grant, the ISA, for the two different kinds, the recreation and rebuilding, refurbishing,
Yes,
you mentioned functionality.
yes.
Does that not mean also being semantic here with words? Does that not mean how it's gonna be used, not if it can be used because of the structure?
Well, if you're gonna change the building to have more functionality of the building, but, it doesn't talk about structural changes to the building, like, we need to beef up, basically need to gut the building.
Well, that's what I mean,
From
like
inside.
function as far as getting
Yes.
structure.
So,
But then you can get the grant from ISA to say, yes, we've done that because there's a functionality to it. These people will be using it in this function, this function. That's what I mean by being semantic about it.
well, you know, these were discussions we've had with the people at the ministry. And again, they're interpreting as well as we are. But, one thing they told us is, you know, we can't put a municipal building, in under this as a opportunity to fund it. But the municipal building could be part of this new location to make it more of a hub. So they want these things to be hubs that can have more functionality, more use. So that's kind of the interpretation. You know, there was a discussion about downstairs in the old town hall. At one time, there was a design, discussion, and this is years ago, likely 10 years ago, about the washrooms need to be upgraded and need to be accessible. But even that cost was pretty significant at the time, and it wasn't done. But at that time, it was a matter of gutting the whole downtown, or the whole downstairs floor to accommodate those washrooms, to accommodate a bit of change room area, and a kitchenette for, you know, the idea would be that you could come down from downstairs and have a, you know, kind of a wine and whatever, kind of a between intermission event. But, again, it's, you know, if there's grants out there, you know, we're more than happy, but, to work but, this is the first grant that's come along of substantial, and, it doesn't fit the same as what, other opportunities. But, I mean, we can turn left or we can turn right. It's just from our perspective, there'd be, the success opportunities might be not as great. But you never know until you try.
Thank you. And I think one thing we've learned from, or I've learned from dealing with the province, both when I was on Dundalk Council and now, is trying to get details out of them is easier said than done. Bart?
Thank you to the chair. And to, just kind of recapping, the square footage of the Old Town Hall, in another report, you say 2,800 square feet. Is that just one floor?
That would be the theater area.
That's just the theater area. So, okay, so thank you for answering that. And you said that building the theater elsewhere would be only $900,000.
So let me qualify that before I go further. The building, the exterior of the building is 2,400 square feet. So we rounded it up to 2,800 to add on more area for change rooms and so on. But that would give all the room at the front of the building where the entrance is for vestibule and so on. This would have common washrooms and so on for the building, and there would be, you know, a common area for both community hall and cultural area. But again, that's just, that was just kind of, that's an all-in that other proposal, and we can cut that back to lessen it, and the community hall could be whatever.
If
But
I
that's
may?
another discussion.
So we touched on, at one point, the Board of Management was successful, and then, I'm not sure, but when you refer to the Community Action Plan survey, I'm going to go back to what Councillor Shipston was saying, and if you were to add up, 1, restore the Old Town Hall to its former glory, secure the building enough to allow the concert hall to reopen, number 2, 3, get the detailed engineering study done and then consider the question, so kind of one of those no opinion, not quite sure yet, and you add only consider repairs if it was going to be used more frequently, and we have a robust and enthusiastic group that plans on putting those bums in the seats, is more than 50%, I added 58%. More than anyone who doesn't have an opinion and wishes to tear down the building. I'm just looking at the numbers, and that's my interpretation, so I'm sure everybody interprets it differently. Dave, you mentioned that if the property was to be redeveloped into an Abbey Field type residence, how is that possible under new standards? Would not a residence have to provide for parking? It's only 2,400 square feet on a footprint. So I'm not sure that, I think having an Abbey Field type facility in Dundalk would be a tremendous addition. Just not sure it would fit that lot. And we're talking about the Old Town Hall as a cultural and arts draw. A multi-use facility, I still support a true multi-use facility that incorporates social services, perhaps other services, recreation, common areas, depending on how the renovated second floor of the arena goes. That usage may increase significantly, and I hear from reports that the drywall has changed the acoustics in that building dramatically. So I'm looking forward to seeing the end result of that and seeing over the next 12 months how the usage improves and increases there. But multi-use facility is development charges supported, is it not?
Yes.
And we're not really sure what that multiple use facility looks like right at the moment. And we have multiple reports that put us grant ready for the Old Town Hall. We have a plan in hand. So I too am, it is an old building. It has a lot of history. If we take out the emotion and the history, can it create its own memories for our youth and future generations? I'll recall a statement made by a resident during a task force meeting that said, 50 years ago, there was a fight opposing the ice arena and the swimming pool. But council of the day and the majority of residents felt that it was the right thing to do to provide space for the community to come together for our youth and for all ages. And I think it's time that we figure that out. This council, I mean, we all know, we've all agreed that we're going to make a decision on something, and I just think we honestly have consulted with the community. We have got a building assessment. We have a passionate group of people who want to try, and we haven't seen that in a very long time. That's about all I can say at this moment in time.
Thank you. Brian?
Two things. Dave, do you have any idea what the price cost index, or the construction index, price index has increased in the last year? Where does it sit at? I see our building inspector there, maybe he knows, just off the top of your head. I've heard numbers of 13%. That's what the construction price index annually increases. Because of the demand for construction, the lack of help, prices just continue to escalate. So if we go with a number for $3.5 million for the renovations, you're at $500,000 increase per year that we delay. So, we're not going to do it this year, not like you're going to do it next year, even if we decide to go ahead. So we're probably into 2020, or 2021 rather. It keeps going. So anyway, the other side of me says, do we need to give the community, I don't know, pick a number, 6 months, 8 months, to say, okay, you got 8 months, let's see what the community can raise in terms of funds. Like, have at her. Like, really, let's put our cards on the table and say, can we do this? I'm hearing tonight we can, but I need to see it. So, if there's a way to amend this somehow or back up somehow and say, the community wants 6 months or 8 months or whatever the group here decides, let's give the community that time to show them, to show us, to show the rest of the community that there is the interest and financial ability to do this.
Maybe I'll just respond to a couple things. So to Councillor Milne's comments, that's fine with me, that's drive on. But I think we made some of those statements very clear. What we were looking for is, like a plan, and something we got tonight. And we've got some of it last September. But we're welcome to do that. But I think it's time to make a decision in the next while, if not tonight. And I want to go back to the community action plan. I don't think we should just dispel the feedback there. And again, unbiased survey, and I think maybe Councillor DeBreen's interpretation, maybe, I want to share with you how staff interpreted this. Restore the Old Town Hall with its glory is pretty obvious. They think we should, at all costs, do that. Secure the building enough to allow the concert hall to reopen. So that's do something, they like that concert hall. Get the detailed engineering study done and then consider the question. That's not really saying do it, just, you need to make a decision. So I wouldn't say that's in favor. Let's just, if you shelve that aside or you want to split it 50-50, which we can do that. The other one is, number 4, is only consider repairs to the building if it's more frequently used. Again, I go back to best prediction of the future is past. And I mean, our rural area has less people, the demographics is changing, and they don't participate in our community like we used to have in the rural area. So I think that needs to be a consideration of what is our use. Tear down the building is pretty aggressive, and that was, higher numbers than the first two, and no opinion. People just don't care. So I don't think we can dispel that. I know there's people in the room passionate. Some of us are still passionate about it. I mean, I got a right shoulder and a left shoulder. It's tearing you apart. But I'm sure we'd all like our grandchildren in a venue like this, in a theater production. But again, we got to. I think there's people telling us too that have to be analyzed at a cost. And anyway, I throw that out for discussion because I think for the council to make an appropriate decision, that needs to be one of the things that we need to consider in comparison to where we can do some of these events and still have our youth participate and our seniors participate and everyone in between participate in community events.
I think one of the points of the presentation was they want to get in on this grant, so it's time sensitive that way. Martin and then Barb.
Yeah, comment really, with Charles Fernandez, if he's still there. Oh, hi Charles. Being so eloquent, being a former library board. He mentioned convergence. I'm looking at this as almost a perfect storm because we have to have a decision made tonight. We have to have something for the downtown. We have that grant coming now. And just to comment that the past is the past, well, it's only going to stay the past if you don't change it. So, no offense, but that, and as far as cyclical and the rural population wouldn't be interested, but they have their own culture, they do their own thing. But you can't say that's going to hurt the town hall because you have all these people coming in who want to do something in the community, who don't want to drive back to Shelburne or Toronto. I work for a lot of people in Shelburne. They don't stay around on the weekend because they don't really consider anything to do, and they miss their family. Well, what better way to keep the family up and say, hey, why are you not here? There's something to be done about they're putting the theater on. So it's cyclical, like everything else. So I think it's going to be money well spent if we use the ISIP grant for this.
Thank you. Barb? and then you can be,
I'll try to be brief.
so thank you.
Figured I'd say it before you did.
Yeah.
Uh,
Every once in a while, I hold my phone up just
Well,
so
you
that
have
you know.
control over the microphone anyway, so you.
If you hear a loud beep, it's just,
It's just me getting cut off, and he's eating into my time. So, to Deputy Mayor Mellon's point about, let's see what kind of fundraising Team Town Hall can come up with. You know, we have a timeline. There's a grant opportunity. We will miss it, one, if that's how council votes. Number two, I can appreciate that Team Town Hall can't go out and ask people for money, especially, you know, unless there's checks post-dated, to see if there's that interest without a commitment from this table. Because in 6 months, 8 months' time, and they've raised $100,000, well, you know, we don't think that's good enough, we're pulling the plug anyway. So now they gotta return all the checks, or figure out who gave them $10, or what do they do with that money? So I can appreciate that they've been hesitant to get a GoFundMe started, to get those checks written. They're waiting for a commitment from council. We're either in or we're out. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
that was really brief, that was good.
I'm working on it.
Yes. Any other comments? Okay, seeing none. The resolution is, yes, you can.
And I'm gonna have to ask for point of procedure, because I don't see anybody making the motion or the amendment. This would be contrary to the resolution, because the resolution as stated says that we do nothing more for the Old Town Hall. So, do we let this motion fail and bring back another motion? Is that possible? I'm not sure, Madam Clerk.
She knows all the rules.
Through Mayor, members of council, so if a motion fails, then a new motion could be brought forth shortly thereafter the motion fails, if it fails. Right, and depending on what the motion is, we'd have to see how contrary it is. So I would recommend if we take a quick recess, that way I can maybe speak with you to see how, if it is contrary, or if we just want to go ahead and go through with the vote.
Go ahead.
I don't have anything concrete written. I have a thought based on the conversation, so I would, if council's wish, we could recess, have a leg stretch, and I'd be happy to confer with the clerk and.
Okay, then I'd say let's take a quick few minute, because I
She won't give me
I don't want you to kick out stuff that's in your brain during the meeting that way. Let's get it sorted out and then we'll go. No, that's good. That's good. No, you're good. You have a lot of good ideas. So recess. Few minutes. What do you want?
It might have been on, but I also wonder how many people are now, because it goes with the number.
Like a doorbell. It's like a doorbell, but it works, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll call the meeting back to order. So, lost the other one, the other motion. Any more comments? Questions from council? Barb? No? Okay.
Was the upshot of the,
Yes, I was just going to ask the clerk to, my
yes.
recommendation was utterly contrary.
Okay.
Sorry, through the mayor, members of council, in discussions with Councilor Dupree, the motion that she had requested to be presented or amended actually is in contrary to the existing motion that is on the table.
So just to explain that to everybody, we have a motion in front of us. We can make amendments or changes to it, but one of the changes can't be to make it opposite what the motion says. So that's why it can't be added to this one. Barb?
And through the chair, the clerk has advised that depending on the outcome of this resolution, a motion could be brought forward immediately following, depending on the outcome of this motion, of this resolution. Is that correct?
Okay. All right. Okay. So if there's no more questions or comments, I'm going to read it again just so we're just, does anyone on council want me to read it again first? We know what you have in front of you what the motion is? Okay. All in favor? Opposed? That is lost. Okay, so that motion is defeated. Barb?
Through the chair, I believe the clerk has a potential motion that I would like to move.
Okay.
You wouldn't mind seeing it.
I was gonna,
I've only got it on mine.
I was gonna say when you read it, it had to be out loud, but
It's on this one.
yeah, I can
Could
see,
it send to Lindsay?
I can see it up on the board there.
I don't have email now.
Yeah, I can see it on the board.
Here, hold on.
Okay. No, I can see it like that. Yep. Be it resolved, council directs staff to prioritize the Old Town Hall over the multi-use municipal office facility to be included in the 2020 capital budget for presentation at the public information meeting. And that council support Team Town Hall request for the current ICIP grant application stream and direct staff to prepare a robust application for the ICIP grant for the Old Town Hall revitalization and renovation as a historical theater, arts, and culture facility. Was that what?
I be October 31st, November 19th? I don't know what date you just.
November 19th, 2019 meeting.
Is that when it is?
Nope, 20th. Sorry. So members of council, so the November 20th date is the public information meeting for the capital budget, I believe. Or is it-
How about just putting for the November?
November 20th council meeting, 7 p.m.
Perhaps we don't need to be specific on the date, but this, if I may clarify, this is to include an appropriate number in the capital budget.
Just a second, we need a mover seconder before we can add anything to it, unless it's gonna
It
change
was
that.
just
To change that, go
She
ahead.
was changing the wording, and I wasn't sure what the wording was being changed to, but if we could just keep it generic as to when that capital budget presentation is,
Okay, good.
and that the number would be incorporated for consideration. So I'm okay with the wording.
So let's get it moved and seconded, and then if we have to do anything with the wording, it can be amended. Okay,
I move it.
yeah, Barb will move it, Martin will second it. Dave, you have a comment?
So the approval of the capital budget is November 6th, not 19th.
Sorry, through mayor, members of council, I'm talking about the public information meeting, so this would be directing the treasurer to include this in the final presentation that we have being presented in the public information meeting for the budget for capital.
But the capital budget is
Which
being
is-
approved final for November 6th.
And when's the public meeting for the capital budget?
Yeah, that's being productively operated. I'm not sure he's got, it's approval November 6th. I'm not sure there's a public information meeting about that. It would be all
Or
combined
operating.
later, operating and capital.
So when,
That motion would have to have November 6th.
the next available budget meeting?
Through mayor, members of council, we'd have to discuss with the treasurer to see if this could be an update at the October 31st meeting. That way, at least there's an update, and then it can still be discussed at November 6th. So we just have to double check with him to see if he's got enough time to bring it forth on October 31st. That way, at least we can discuss that prior to discussing the operating budget.
Okay. Is that fine with the seconder too? Okay. Any discussion? Brian?
So, do I understand then that the amount we'd be putting into our capital budget would be simply our share, so to speak, if the application was successful? Am I correct?
It would be at minimum, 27%, 73%
Right.
funding between province and.
So what
We'd be
we're,
in for 27%, and that
of
funding.
what?
Well, I think
The estimate,
you'd have
like,
to put in for 3 million,
right,
and then you'd have to put in a 20%, at least a 20% contingency factor. And you'd like to have a 5% factor for,
cost
inflation.
escalation, right.
because that's what the recommendation of the reports
Right.
have been. And that's not, like you say, oftentimes it gets higher than that,
Right.
your construction index.
So I'd also ask then, does this resolution imply that if the grant application is not successful, that the project stops for now? Right?
That would be.
It doesn't mean,
That'd be a council
it,
decision.
well, yeah, I mean, it doesn't mean that we can't start again with whatever and finds other funding, but we're not committed to funding the whole thing ourselves if the grant application fails. Is that understood?
Barb?
That would be my interpretation, that we would need to have to come back to council if we don't get the grant. And then
Right.
decisions have to be made, and they have to be made, one way or the other.
Thank you.
I also think that everybody should be aware, just that, well, it isn't as simple as saying to a certain amount of money, we'll put it away. We'll have to look at how we're gonna finance it, because our entire budget to run everything is $6 million a year. So $1 million is a huge portion, that's what our portion is, so it'll be a matter of how we have to finance it too. So we have to look at all those things, not saying that won't do it, but we have to look at those things, so it isn't just as simple as going, yeah. Okay, just so that, but more, I know council knows that, just more for everyone else, so we can work on that. Anyone else have any comments or questions? Dave?
So is this motion, I thought are we focusing on one ICIP grant or two?
Sorry, I'm under the impression we're only allowed to go to
No,
one.
you could go with multiples, it's just whether the fit is there. And,
Well, I can decide
until
that.
we see that next, like, as long as this isn't contrary to that next report.
Barb?
Clarification then, my understanding was is that we could only apply for one project. It was either or.
That was never said. No. No.
Okay.
The recommendation is that staff felt the better fit was the multi-use facility, like community action plan.
Then I misread. Then if I may suggest, as a mover, that we prioritize the Old Town Hall to be included in the 2020 capital budget as opposed to over the multi-use facility, because we have a staff report coming, but and I think that's what you're saying, is that there's a potential that there, but I don't want them to be competing because we have a lot to discuss in another staff report.
Mm-hmm.
But would that satisfy, get the job done, but we still are open to discussing the other staff report?
Well, we'll see if your seconder agrees with that. You're okay with that wording? Okay. Good, yep. Yeah, one motion isn't gonna limit the other. Okay, any other questions or comments? Jason?
So when will we know if we're successful or not, timeline?
I would say it would take 6 months, like March, April next year, before you would know.
Okay. Yeah, usually it's a small window to put them in, and you wait to hear. Any other questions or comments? All in favor of the motion? Opposed? That is carried.
Can I have a recorded vote, please?
Yes, you can.
Councillor DeBreen has requested a recorded vote on using a new motion, for CAO Report 2019-018. Be resolved that council direct staff to prioritize the Old Town Hall to be included in the 2020 capital budget for presentation at the next available budget meeting, and that council support Team Town Hall's request for the current ICIP grant application stream, and direct staff to prepare robust application for the ICIP grant for the Old Town Hall revitalization and renovation at the Historical Theatre, Arts and Cultural Facility. Councillor Crew?
Yes.
Councillor Shipton? Deputy Mayor Milne?
Yes.
Mayor Woodbury?
Yes.
Councillor Rice?
Yes.
Councillor Pearson?
Yes.
And Councillor DeBreen? Yes. Vote carries.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Now, we'll go back to the agenda. Here, I can grab that. Thank you. We've got Public Works Manager's Report, Boundary Road Agreement, PW 2019-062 with the municipality of Grey Highlands. what, yeah, I was gonna try and trap you here, because we're not used to having anyone here, and it's just, you know, we're just gonna trap you all here. You would have been asleep in about 10 minutes anyway, so. No, we're pausing. Okay, yes, PW 2019-062, Boundary Road Agreement, Municipality of Grey Highlands. Jim, anything we need to know about that? Oh, I need a mover and second. Michael? Martin? There you go, Jim.
Yeah, we've been trying to work on this for quite a while. Municipal Act requires that we have one. So anyhow, this is nothing different than we've been doing in the years past on who's looking after what. It's just finalizing it, getting it into the document that should be renewed every 5 years. Grey Highlands has taken the liberty to have their solicitor look it over prior to, in the draft form, and also apparently their insurance risk manager advisor that worked through some of the language in it. So it's long overdue, and we're going to be basing one for Wellington North. I just sent it away at 5 o'clock today.
Okay, thank you. Well, we had one of their counselors here, maybe we could have got him to sign it while he was here. That's why I'm always glad to see Campbell here, in case we need something from Wellington. Any questions or comments? Barb?
Do we have a similar agreement with West Grey already? Because I know that we have that common road boundary as well.
Yeah, so we had a revised version, not quite as robust as this one that was passed, I think, 2 years ago with West Grey. Melanchthon's will be coming up, I think, next year, so, yeah.
Thanks. Anyone else? Okay, all in favor? That up is carried. Next. We have bylaw 2019-149, Boundary Road Agreement, Municipality of Grey Highlands, moved by Brian, second by Jason. Any comment or question? This is bylaw on the report was stated. Seeing none, all in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. PW 2019-063, Public Works Report. Mover and seconder, please. Barbara and Jason. Jim, anything you wanted to highlight from your report?
Not really. This one has a resolution for supporting Waste Reduction Week in Canada. So we would like to proceed with that. And for council's information, the trails and network and cycling update from the networking workshop that Glenn and I attended a week ago Friday for information.
Thank you. Questions or comments from council? Brian?
Jim, do we have staff that regularly patrol roads?
Yeah, through our level of service, we're to be, depending on the class, somewhere between 14 and 21, 30, depending on the
And what sort of things do they look for?
They should be looking for, this time of year, potholes, sign deficiencies, other maintenance issues with sight lines or whatever, if they see a guide rail that's been taken out or something along like that.
Okay, thanks.
Barb?
So through the Chair, and perhaps this is more to our county representatives. I'm reading about the cycling lanes and the
Paved
cost.
shoulders, they're not bike lanes, yeah.
Okay, paved shoulders, where our cost could be almost as much as our full annual budget. And do we have, like, I'm reading, I don't know if I misread it, but the estimated costs are 60 million for widening of paved shoulders and signage, and Southgate sections identified would cost an approximately $5,269,000 through this county initiative. Is that our cost, or is that county paying for it?
I'll let Jim explain, but yes.
But if you want to pitch in,
Yeah.
that matters.
Well, it's one taxpayer, it's coming out of our pocket regardless, but,
Now it's one tax.
and then I did have a question about that was, so what and maybe this is for Glenn Walker, who isn't here, I don't know if he's still here, but what kind of revenue do people who use paved shoulders bring to the township? Because they do refer to it as cycling.
I'll let Jim answer, but I can add a couple of things too.
Yeah, so in that discussion, apparently at Blue Mountains, they have quite a bit of revenue, over this. So, that's our comment that we received back was Blue Mountains gets quite a bit of revenue out of this.
The other thing I can add to it is, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ryan, but
Never.
yeah. Is a lot of the money for the paved shoulders was through provincial grant. And that's kind of any county road they're doing the paved shoulders on, that's the way I understand it. So, now how much is provincial grant it was, I don't know.
And just as a comment,
To Blue Mountains is I don't see a lot of cyclists stopping in Southgate. I see them, and I see them riding through Southgate on their way to somewhere. But I don't actually see them stopping much.
Ryan has some more information for you.
The various routes that the county does promote, there is one that comes down around through Walters Lake and down 23 and back out 9 and up 6. I did somewhat facetiously talk about bicycle versus paved shoulders, but literally that is a thing. Because if you call it and construct it as a bike lane, you must maintain it as a public thoroughfare. Now, there are 2 in the county that are bike lanes, I believe both in Blue Mountains. And we literally, the county literally has to pass a bylaw to close them in the wintertime.
right, I was there that week.
That's right, you were. So, I mean, but in the rest of the county, they're paved shoulders. They're not bike lanes.
Bicycle routes.
No.
No.
Well, they promote the bicycle route, that's right, but it's not on the not on the bicycle lane. You can bike on the paved shoulder if you want, but it's not a bike lane. It's a bike route, not a bike lane.
All I know is I had it pointed out to me, it was bicycle, not motorcycle. Go ahead, Barb.
Good point, good point. So to that point, the paved shoulder, will this benefit or hinder our alternate use transportation residents, the horse and buggies? Will the large tractors, I can see that it would be a benefit because the large tractors might get over a little bit more and provide a little bit more space, but will that just break up the edges more? They're not bikes, they're big tires or they're really tiny wagon tires.
It should help, the current situation of, what tires those are riding the shoulders that most of the roads have now. But I did bring that up to this group, that there are other users of this, with the agricultural equipment and horse and buggies, and, they have that share the road too, so, this is, not necessarily accommodating them, it helps them, but, and it should help with some pavement preservation at the edge, but ultimately, there'll still be an edge that can be broken off.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments on that report? One, okay, and then Martin.
So I asked Jim previously about the holiday lighting, and I believe you're proposing to go with the two top choices as opposed to the one top choice.
Correct, we've ordered two top.
Good, thank you. Martin? No, you were interested in the snowflakes too? Okay. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion? And that is carried. Next, Clint. We'll move on to planning report, PL 2019-060, smoke-free public spaces, policy number 43 update. Do I have a mover and a seconder for that? Martin and Jim? Clint, would you like to give us any highlights?
Good evening, Council.
Good evening.
This policy required updating after the cannabis bylaw was adopted or approved by Council a couple weeks ago. Anyway, it was approved by Council, and therefore this policy needed to change to be updated to reflect cannabis products. And with that need, I guess the biggest change is that because cannabis acts like alcohol, as much as it is a smoke or a vapor, it therefore required banning basically on municipal property as opposed to within 9 meters of this or 9 meters of that. It's basically, if you're on municipal property, don't smoke. And it's real simple.
Thank you. Questions? Martin?
Do you foresee this changing again because of the new law about the edibles coming out? Like, that's even harder to enforce? Or is it because it's cannabis, and therefore...
Well, this deals specifically with smoke. Cannabis is not, it would follow, like the edibles would follow under your public intoxication, that sort of thing. But it's not transferable to other people,
It's not secondhand edibles?
Yes.
So really, this is about enforcement by the health unit for smoke only. All the rest of it is OPP related.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Barb?
To clarify, when I was reading it, it talks about property lines. Does that include the road allowance, or are we talking about, and I mean, we have the Ag Society land, is that deemed township property even though it's, like, so there's always going to be those that figure out a way.
Go ahead,
Can you
Clay.
smoke out in the sidewalk?
The reason why I said property line is because that way it doesn't include the road allowance. So your sidewalk and your road, in your car, in your road, while you're on the road, you can still smoke your cigarette or whatever. It's not cannabis.
That would be
Clarify
clear.
that. Yeah. So that's why it's the property boundary as opposed to the road allowance.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? Seeing none, all in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. PL 2019-061, LPAT, formerly OMB, attendance policy number 60 update. Do I have a mover for that? Jason and Martin? Hi, Clint.
Hello again. This policy is almost identical to the other policy, except for the fact that I went and did a word search for OMB and replaced it with LPAT. That's the first change. So everywhere in there that said OMB, it now says LPAT. The second change is I added the second paragraph there, where it talks to, with respect to the Committee of Adjustment. Basically, all issues brought before the Committee of Adjustment are generally as a result of private development, and as such, their appeals to a decision of the Committee of Adjustment will not be defended by the township. It's not, they're small enough that it shouldn't necessarily be the township's responsibility to defend those private interests. So obviously you leave the door open in case council really feels strongly about that, or you get a room full of people who really feel strongly about that. It leaves the door open for that.
Okay, thank you. Questions or comments? And this will be good for what, 6 months till they change the name again? Yeah. Okay. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Oh, fine favor. Thank you. Next is CAO Report 2019-109, the Plateau North Phase 4, 5, and 6 Subdivision Agreement Approval.
You missed one there.
Oh, provincial policy update. Oh, someone's flipping the pages too quick, probably me. Let's go to Planning 2019-062, Provincial Policy Updates and Comments. Clint? Clint, would you like to hear who's the mover and seconder?
Yes, please.
Okay, Barb will move it and Martin will second it. Okay, now you get to talk.
This council may have seen that the province is updating the provincial policy statement. As you may know, this is the chief policy document when reviewing planning applications within the province of Ontario, and it has a big impact on all planning decisions. So I encourage you to read the attachment, which was a report prepared by the county planners, which does a pretty comprehensive review of the whole thing. I then separated that out into what I felt was specific to the township interests, and that's what's in the report before you. So if you have any questions on that, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you. And yes, it came before the county a little last week, and we passed it there. So any questions or comments? Martin?
Well, I actually did, not that your report wasn't good, I did go to the county report after. Pretty fast tracking things, and then how would that affect more.
Main thing. Back. Be fairly. If there's no further questions or comments, all in favor? That is carried. Thank you. So like I said, CAO Report 2019-109, the Plateau North Phase 4, 5, and 6 Subdivision Agreement Approval. And this time I'm going to do something different. Thank you, Brian. I'm going to move her, and Martin will be the seconder. There, I'm going to do it that way. Dave?
You don't want to do 108 again? No, just joking.
Make another run of it.
So 109 is basically, when they went through all the searches to get to registry stage, they came across a piece of property, I think it's block 138, but I stand corrected. It was owned by Plateau Dundalk Metals Incorporated, and not the numbered company. So we've added the Plateau Dundalk Metals Incorporated to be a party to the subdivision agreement, and that now makes it complete that it can be, go ahead and register. Plateau has already signed both ownerships, representing Plateau Metals and the numbered company, and it's before us to
Already, the subdivision And that's just, I guess, self-explanatory, that's the bylaw to go with the last motion. Any questions or comments? Barbara? No? That's just baseball, that'd be all. So, but, seeing no more, all in favor? CAO 2019-110, Southgate ICIP Community Facility Funding Report. Be it resolved, Council receives staff report CAO 2019-110 as information, and then goes on further with the motion. Do we have a mover and seconder? I remembered once. Martin and Jim. Dave.
Okay, so this report is before you, and we put this together based on the ICIP grant, and that grant application is due November 12th. And this is a funding opportunity that would provide us with, we put in here the municipal office space that would be accessible. And we talked in the past about any further investments here would be just throwing money at it and give us another 5 or 6 years, but the accessibility challenges here are pretty significant. And community facility of $1.275 million would be the construction cost, and part of that would be a vestibule area and washrooms and kitchen, and then parking lot and contingencies to make it 3.97. Now, there is a cultural center piece in here. That still can be applied for should one be successful or the other be successful. You'd still have that piece available to you. But I mean, when we come to agreement phase, we can pull that out and not put that in our final design. We've had meetings with the Egg Society. They're giving us a letter of support. They've also shared with us a design just as a concept that they've been working on. That I think there's agreement there that it's beyond their financial capacity. But the reason we bring this forward is that it comes back from the community action plan. That is, we need to look at a community facility, and that does that. It fits with the community hub aspect of the grant application. And I think as far as leverage of taxpayers' dollars, this does that pretty well because we have the funding from the donation, development charges, and efficiency funding that's well over $1.2 million, and possibly a grant of 1.9, and then our component would be $845,000 at the top end, but that's with a pretty significant contingency of $655,000. So it's not often you go in that deep, but for to get a like a $3 or $4 million facility for in the order of $800,000 is pretty good leverage and an opportunity. And we've got meetings set up to further create partnerships with Lions Club. Seniors Advisory Committee have given us a letter of support, and we have requested one from the Southeast Community Health Center. And the Legion as well, we're talking to it. We've got a meeting, working on a meeting with them as well.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Martin?
Through Chair, you mentioned the Ag Society is working on this for a while.
Yeah.
How much money have they thought they actually could put aside? You said
Well,
it's too much for them?
I think what they come up with originally was that they were going to be to do something like this was going to be 1.7 million. Now their design is a bit different, and I've shared it with you. We wouldn't use that specific design, but they like this look. It's kind of a unique look similar to the library, but they felt that's beyond their financial capacity, I think, at this point.
Well, my point being, sorry to interrupt, they would put money into it though?
No, they, like, what we're asking them for, and I mean, that has to be developed over time, but, they want to see what, if council's gonna support this, they would, possibly consider, we could put most of this on our land, we then we have an agreement with them right now with the arena, because our arena's on their property, and they have so many use days, but we have to open up that agreement and allow them to use this building and, for their uses, but, anyway. We met with the committee twice, one at the site and one at a meeting, and we presented to the Egg Society last week, and we have a letter of support coming.
Thank you. Any more questions or comments? Brian?
Dave, how developed does the project have to be? Like you indicate, there's no final design or anything, like, you developed this far enough to do an application?
Absolutely,
And this is enough?
for sure.
So,
We got budget numbers,
I get that,
and
but,
for both projects, I mean, the
Yeah,
town
yeah,
hall,
yeah.
we got them,
Yeah, yeah.
they're both in the same
but
place.
this isn't a floor plan, like you don't have
No,
to
you don't have
submit.
to, you don't have to have a floor plan.
It's like, this isn't a
We could-
shovel-ready deal.
We could have a concept drawing like this sent if we like this look, and we
Yeah,
could
yeah.
say, this is a rendering, may not be the final, but, the big thing is that we have is we've got development charges we're collecting for, it's in our community action plan, so it's a strategic
Yep.
direction that, previous councils have suggested, put in the DCs, the community action plan supports it, so that says we need to do something someday.
Yep.
And this is an opportunity to leverage those tax dollars
Alright.
to do that.
All right, that's good. One more question, if I might. When did we decide to go to Dundalk?
I knew that question would come up.
So I'm sure you have a good
yeah.
answer.
Well, I mean, I wasn't involved in designing the township lines, and we have community centers, one is Dundalk and one is Mount Forest. We contribute to Mount Forest in a different way, which we've done. And so, do we, and we haven't even talked about, there's external communities that maybe should be supporting this. And we maybe, if we got the funding, we maybe would need to go talk to them about this kind of thing. But Mount Forest serves us, and we have to serve Moncton and Grey Highlands a bit, but, that's kind of nature of the beast. Would we, I know where you're going as far as the municipal office, would we have to consider, some services out there, maybe at tax time, I don't know. That's a discussion maybe for another day, but, anyway, it would be, the application would look much better with a community hub, municipal office, community facility tied together, for sure. And I think today we have ways of dealing financially through the internet and through websites and forums online and so on, that we can do a lot of business. We don't get a lot of people coming here except for to maybe meet with the planner and that type of thing. We do get people still coming and paying tax bills. Chances are we'll get more visits when we're in Dundalk than we do here because of the, we're proximity.
There won't be more coming from Holstein.
No, I get that. I get that.
Go ahead.
I guess my concerns revolve around the horse and buggy community primarily. But there's all kinds of services that the township provides, and as you've heard me say, or a former mayor has said many times, Holtville is equally inconvenient to everybody. I understand there are benefits to going to Dundalk, for sure there are. But those benefits primarily accrue to staff, not to the taxpayer or to the citizens of the township.
Yeah, I guess I'd argue that. I mean, if you're, when it comes to Mennonite community, they go to town to do commerce. A trip here is like the end of the way. For those that are coming in a car, that are driving a distance and aren't in a buggy, not like it matters whether they go here another 10 minutes into town. But I get your point. There's no perfect place. Unless this is it here.
Well, it's perfect today.
Michael?
I like Brian, I think that we need to look at trying to be central within Southgate, so we do have Hopeville Ballpark that's sitting there not being utilized by all means, and you could build an office building there for the township. That, maybe you won't be able to build a community hall there, but we're not sure what our community hall in Dundalk's gonna look like after upstairs in the arena either, at this point either, so, as I said, you know, that property's sitting there, I'm not sure who owns it, if we own it, or if, someone else, but I'm just kinda wondering.
So, maybe to comment on that, one thing they do want us to do is consolidate facilities to make it more efficient. That's one thing. They talk about energy efficiency, leveraging dollars for investment, and that's one thing that putting the municipal office, community facility, or community center, cultural center all in one is consolidating more energy efficiency in one building rather than multiple buildings. And they even talk about leveraging dollars for the best value.
Thank you. Barbara?
Follow-up.
You could have follow-up, go ahead and then.
Well, I guess I'm still thinking of the earlier delegation and the groups who were here. Moving to Dundalk probably makes sense in terms of the application, for sure. But in my mind, it sends a message to a large part of the community that you guys don't matter. And I think if we stay here, it bolsters that message that, yeah, we're trying to accommodate all of the township, and not just the East End, or the West End for that matter. But again, it's equally inconvenient to everybody. The other thing is, well, no, I'll leave it there.
We're here if you want to add something.
I'm going to
Barbara?
hug soon.
Okay. Barbara?
Through the chair, I have to concur with Deputy Mayor Milne in that, and Councillor Shearson, that moving the municipal offices to Dundalk doesn't serve all of our residents equally. And as you so eloquently stated, serves them unequal, or it disserves them, I don't know, but we treat them all fairly. I'm having trouble, like, I think this is a great design. It's a eastern version of maybe a more robust Optimist Center, which I'll remind people that that's privately owned and privately run, with some help, good help with the township, and I fully support that. I see this as a multifunctional meeting space. I don't see it attached to recreation. I don't see it attached to the library. I'm having trouble with the municipal offices being part of it in Dunbar. I did some math, and I would argue that an extra 10 minutes driving is an extra 20 minutes round trip, and that's not good for the environment. It's also, when you figure if you're coming from Mount Forest, the people who do commerce, who travel by horse and buggy, who live in the westernmost reaches of our community, are not driving to Dundalk in their horse and buggy to do their banking or buy groceries. They're shopping in Mount Forest. So to require them to go all the way to Dundalk for a building permit or a planning application or to pay their taxes would be, I mean, if it's a 60 to 80 minute drive round trip by car, it's burdensome. So I agree that we need to consider that. I wonder, and again, I think the concept of the Ag Society's building, but you mentioned, Dave, that it may go on our property, or we may need to use some land. I'm not sure where this is going, because I thought the land where the arena, the well, and the water tower is on Ag Society's property.
No, it's on our property. It's in our name. So we own to the back of the arena, past the pavement of about a meter between the Quonset. So our land is in front of the arena.
Okay.
The edge of the pavement or better.
Okay.
So this could be put there. You know, if the Ag Society want to be involved, you know, we would need to talk to them, and we have talked to them. They want to see more in the development of the thing. I mean, I wouldn't get hung up on this picture of what we like or dislike. I mean, we're just talking about a concept now, what ends up being designed, or what we like or don't like. But I think, I understand the piece of coming here, but with the, as far as the efficiency of trips, people go to Dundalk to shop, and the municipal building being in Dundalk would be just another round trip within Dundalk. Where this is likely, if you come and pay your taxes, you're coming here to do one piece of business. So I would argue the efficiency thing. I know it's going to be a challenge for the people in the West, but we're working at being more online friendly. Whether you're going to do a planning application or whatever, yeah, you're going to have to come and see us. There's no doubt. And maybe that's where we put the planner in the Holstein office for, half a day a week or something. That can be done. But anyway, it's a concept. We need to look at, from the standpoint, it talks about growth-related municipal facilities, so in our community action plan. So there's been discussions in the community during that community action plan about this type of thing. So we brought this report forward as an opportunity if council's interested.
Barb, will let you follow up, and Jason?
Thank you. So I'm not opposed to a multi-functional use facility. I'm just not sure that this is a multi-use facility in my mind, and we have been planning for a multi-use facility, and we have a $12 million placeholder for 2028 for an arena that could incorporate other social services and other meeting space. We don't know how well utilized the renovated auditorium space would be yet. And I think if we paused and reevaluated that, I think we also need to consider so the Southeast Grey Community Health Center is supportive of this, but aren't we supporting them in a potential medical facility, multi-use social services aspect there? So what happens to the Erskine Center and the Lions Medical Center after that? What about our McIntyre building, the Legion, Swinton Park, the Lions Pavilion, all of those other options in space? So do they become redundant? And then everyone's going to be booking meeting space there, and those buildings will be left to deteriorate because they're not getting the usage either. We need to keep the lights on if that's the case. And I think we have a commitment to the McIntyre building for a certain period of time. It was, up through an estate gift. I don't see the rush on the multi-use facility. It's been budgeted. We're collecting receipts for it, and I think eventually in 3 to 5 years we can still go ahead with this, and there'll be other grants available. I have a concern that maybe we apply for both and we're either get nothing, but they see it as conflicting, and it's not sufficient. I just have a really, I'm uncomfortable about applying for both, because I understood the ISIP, you could make an application. I know you say in your report, Dave, Southgate ICIT project application intake can be for a combination of cultural facilities and community centers hubs that bring together a variety of different services as well as community centers. I read that as being, you're supposed to amalgamate those.
Yes.
So we have to take out the cultural piece, then we're not amalgamating that aspect. And I think Dundalk could benefit from having both eventually. And maybe instead of a multi-use facility and a $12 million arena, we look at combining those, and in 5 to 8 years, we have a really good concept and get the project ready. So when next time there's a grant application that comes up, we're ready, we've got it in hand, let's go.
Jason?
I agree with the other councillors here about it being a central location, and I'm not really sure with this hub that we call it, with what has happened with the town hall. We'll see when the grant money comes in, We have the arena project, the McIntyre building as such. As far as the community hub, I don't want to sound like a downer, but I don't think these other places aren't being used. Well, hopefully the arena is and stuff. I don't know whether it's going to draw people in. I don't know, it's more of an opinion, and I think we need to keep it central too. But now with this town hall decision, I think we kind of got to see what happens there. And I wasn't aware we could put in a grant for both.
Yeah. I reported, I think, in the one report that you can put in both, but the fit was the fit, this was a much better fit than the other option I felt with the Dual Town Hall.
Brian?
I don't think the applications would be competing directly. Certainly they'd be competing from the standpoint that they're both from Southgate, but the Old Town Hall is a very specific renovation of a cultural community center type renovation, revitalization. This project is green space, basically, it's brand new. So it creates sort of the same usage, hopefully. So rather than competing, I think it's just another good chance to get this funding from the county or the province rather. I'm not suggesting that I'm completely sold on the concept, but if we're pitching to get money from the province, then this is just another good opportunity to do that. I doubt we get both, but it would be a shame if we were turned down for the town hall project and not apply for this one, because then we'd always be thinking, well, golly, what if we'd applied? Same goes the other way, of course. You know, if we'd applied for this one and not the town hall and got turned down, we'd be shaking our hands thinking, darn it, why didn't we apply for that too? I don't think the province is going to penalize us for applying for both projects. Barb?
I don't think they'll penalize us, I just think they won't give it to, one of them's gonna lose. And, depending on the flavor of the report, I can't get my head around the municipal offices in Dundalk at the present time. I can't get my head around it being part of a multi-use facility where if the grant is upwards of $5 million and we're taking out $1 million right off the top because it's not eligible. So does that mean community washrooms aren't eligible? Does that mean the common space aren't? I don't know the answer. And to the point of, well, maybe we'll have the planner or the building department in Holstein a half a day a month. That didn't work when we were in the joint partnership with Grey Highlands. People aren't always available when, you know, they're in the office. You have to schedule the appointment. They have to, you know, come out of the office. And it's really handy. We had a conversation. It's really handy when somebody comes into the counter and they want to apply for a building permit and the chief building official or someone says, oh, well, you need a zoning application. Let's see if Clinton's available and have the conversation. There's advantages to being in the same location at the same time, and I just have a really hard time with the municipal offices being part of this application.
Martin?
Yeah, through the chair. With the community hall, 8,500 square feet, how many people would that accommodate? Because Councilor DeGreen did mention that we have all those other buildings that could be used for meeting areas.
So the 8,500 square feet was some common area and washrooms and kitchen. It would be slightly bigger than the auditorium, the whole auditorium upstairs for open space. So it'd be the tour of the kitchen and the stage and the cloakroom at the back and the washrooms would be about the size of that. Slightly bigger. We're likely to handle 250, 300 people. So it would, I mean, right now, in this part, you know, I think you could entertain, you know, events like we have to go to Owen Sound for. We can entertain them here now, or instead of going to Hanover or Owen Sound, where we don't have those kind of facilities. And that, I mean, that's another option for us to promote our community because we're growing. But, again, I'm providing this report because of the fit, and the community action plan says what we want. These opportunities for funding don't come along that often, and I just want to make sure council understands that. It's going to be challenging to put 2 applications in, that's for sure, and we're going to have to do a lot of work, but and Team Town Hall is going to have to be involved, because,
Yep. Martin?
Well, you mentioned, things being put on at the hall, the new hall. Does that mean conferences going to Hanover, going local and
like,
sound, is that?
we could have an opportunity to host, a senior summit or stuff like that, because now you've got a critical mass of, you've got the upstairs in the arena, you've got the McIntyre building for an opportunity. I mean, that's going down the road, because they're saying, in our community action plan, expand its facilities. We don't have anything that would take over likely 150 people right now. If that's a need, if it's not a need, the community action plan says, is reflected as a need over the next, we've got about 4 years left in this community action plan.
So in 4 years, there could be another grant coming up. You,
Strike when the iron's hot, like, I don't know.
that's true too.
We haven't had a grant this magnitude for this type of facility in the last 4 years.
Okay, one other question, if I may. The 1 million for the municipal offices, is that, debt or?
No, that's the cost of the project, and then there's a funding model.
For DC somewhere in there?
There's no DC, the DCs that were collected for, that's my new reports here.
Oh, yeah, the cultural center, yeah.
Did you take it? Sorry, I'm just joking. No, he's not.
While you're looking.
Anyway,
Yeah, go ahead.
here it is. The community, if you go back to the funding model, ICP grant would be 1.9 million. 500,000 in a donation that we've had committed because this individual telling us we need a community center. That's what he's being told by his customers. 225,000 is the potential for development charges. 510,000 through the efficiency fund, and that 510,000 would be applied for the office, municipal office. So the municipal office would really cost you $490,000 up to $845,000. Now, we could do an expansion on here, using 510. I'm not sure, are we gonna, how can we say it's making this place more efficient? I don't know. But if we go into town, you can say we're gonna be on fiber cables and all that kind of stuff. So that was the rationale of making, setting aside that money for that type of project. But we can test the waters on that too. The problem with expanding here is where?
Before I go to you, Barb, just a suggestion and up to council how they feel about it. If we do apply for this grant, it's a short window. So the kind of discussion we're getting into now, to me, is more of a committee of the whole, a lot more discussion and thing than usually is at a council meeting. Do we need to schedule a meeting where we can talk about all this stuff, including where the grant would cover as far as in town or out, or as far as what would be wanted in that center or things like that to add to this? Is that something that we want to do? So I'm just going to throw that out here. Barb, you had a comment? I am, but I'm just throwing it out there. I don't want to stop anyone from saying what they were saying before. Okay, Mike.
I look at all these numbers here, and, we've got a fair bit of money, donations, we've got some DC charges, we've got the efficiency fund of 110, we've got 845 from Southgate. But when we look at some of these buildings, yeah, we definitely need the office building here, something has to happen here. But the only thing in here is not in here is a bunch of all the other buildings, what we're going to do with some of those. Like, we know that the hall at the ballpark is getting on its last legs. So is there a reason that we can't just modify that to be the new community hall, a standalone hall by itself versus trying to, I know this grant is that, and yeah, it's 1.9 million, but as I said, I'm afraid if we throw that grant in there looking for that money, plus the Old Town Hall grant, that, I don't know, if we get both, does that mean we're gonna be putting two projects on the go in the next couple of years, that we're gonna even have that much more money that we have to spend?
Okay. Yep.
So my next question was, this conceptual drawing, is that in its entirety 8,500 square feet, or is that just the main hall, not including the additional meeting space?
That's just a concept drawing. I mean, the floor plan goes with this drawing. You could blow up that drawing.
No, I'm asking you, is this based on 8,500 square feet?
No, it's not.
Okay.
No.
And the arena auditorium, once it's finished, the open space will be 5,000 square feet?
No, no,
I didn't think so.
we never said that.
Well, it says here, present arena auditorium, 5,000 square feet.
Yeah, and that's the whole arena auditorium upstairs, outside measurements.
Okay, because Councillor Shipton asked what 8,500 square feet was, and you said if you wrote all the walls, it'd be about the equivalent of the
That
upstairs.
question was, what was the
Right.
actually auditorium space be? It'd be about the same space without a stage, without washrooms, without any kitchen area.
5,000 or 8,500?
5,000.
Okay, thank you.
85, the other 3,500, you're looking at washrooms, you're looking at vestibule area, and you're looking at kitchen area.
I still see this as being potential if we really designed it and understood how it was going to be incorporated with the other, how it was going to affect the other facilities, how it was going to be incorporated with the arena, and the other, and really get a project-ready package together. I agree with Councillor Sherson. It's playing Russian roulette with the grant, and we might affect the other. I don't know.
Jason, you had something?
I was just wondering, with this $500,000 donation, going back to our other, we were talking about where it's going, does this person have where they want it, or?
Well, we'd have to go back and
Yeah.
talk to them, like, they think it should be in a common area with other.
I mean, it's
recreation
pretty significant
facilities.
money, so
For sure.
they'll probably want to dictate.
Yeah.
Brian?
Well, I still don't think the applications would be competing. I'd be absolutely thunderstruck if we got both. It's unbelievable. But we wouldn't have to take both either. We could, choose one or the other at that point. I'm not sure, Mr. Mayor, whether we've got time to have another meeting to kind of hash this out. But I'm wondering if we decide to apply, and it sounds like we don't have to have a finished like a floor plan or anything like that. It's just a concept. This is what we're thinking. Maybe in the not too near future, we appoint 2 members of council and the mayor to a task force to work with the CEO to kind of thrash out a lot of the questions that are being asked here now on, what does this look like if we do get the funding?
Okay. Any, Mark?
Out of the whole development here, I think we should prioritize what we really need right now, and that's the municipal office. And I would like to see that somewhere in the middle of the township, not done though. So I think maybe we should look at properties, see what we can do with this. Whether it be a 5,000 square foot, 2-tiered building. You still only have 500 square feet, it's just 2 levels. Right?
You wanna go 2 levels, because then you're in an elevator, you wanna go
Oh, I see.
slab on grade for accessory building. Yeah, I mean, if you're not gonna move out of here, you may as well just upgrade this facility. Some fashion, find a way. Because I think this would be, you're not gonna rent this facility easily, but, anyway, that would be something here for $500,000, and rather than, you know, there's 510,000 that could go for a new facility. The thing we wouldn't be able to do here is entertain, social service, and that type of sort of thing.
Barb?
The point of, do we have time to have a little bit more robust discussion? It's not due till November 12th. I know, you know, I want to appreciate that staff now have a robust application to do with, in collaboration with Team Town Hall. But we're meeting on the 31st in the morning for budget. Would it make sense to defer the decision and meet again in committee of the whole immediately like in the afternoon, or following that budget meeting, or sometime that week? Would that still give staff time to, I mean, if we...
I think council should vote on it and get on with it, and then if you want to develop it more, if you're still interested, but, you know, we got limited time left, likely about 20, 25 days left to get this application in. So, I mean, we're gonna start putting stuff together and, get it rolling. But, you know, we've been forging some partnerships based on the original discussions on September, whatever, the second or third, or whatever that meeting was. And, you know, October 2nd, we did another report, so this is, the third time we come at this application.
And it's been in the community improvement plan. Okay, any other discussion? Seeing none, and just because, I'm gonna read this motion again. Be it resolved, the council receives staff report CAO 2019-110 as information, and the council approves staff proceeding with the creation of a project funding application and the developing of community partnerships relating to investing in Canada Infrastructure Program grant intake by the November 12th, 2019 deadline, as well as investing DC reserves efficiency funding and donations in a multi-purpose community facility in Dundalk. Okay, so that's the motion.
Just a excuse me, a question of clarification.
Yep.
By approving this, if we do, does that tie us to going to Dundalk?
It says, if you were going to do the community hub project, it would tie you to going to Dundalk with the application we would submit.
But we still have the option, if we do get the grant,
Yep.
if we're successful next March or April, and by then we've had more opportunity to discuss with the community the implications,
Yep.
we can decline it, correct?
You could decline it. We could modify it to pull the municipal building out of it and go with let's say we don't get the town hall and we got this, you could do a community
Correct.
center and cultural center. You could do just the community center. I mean, you'd have to go back and get some discussion approval with it because you're kind of removing that community hub piece.
Right.
But, I mean, at this point, nothing ventured, nothing gained. You can always turn it down, but you can't, you know, go next March and say, I wish I had a.
Right.
And that's all I'm throwing at you.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you, Mr.
Because,
Mayor.
I really hate to turn down money when it's given to you.
There's the rub.
Yes, it's being given to us if we ask for it and we get approved. It's being given to you,
Well, the problem,
1.9 million.
And there's a donation and things, so there is some money. But, whatever. Barb?
So, I would have to argue that it's not guaranteed that it's being given to us. It's not,
But,
1.9 million
yeah.
is up for grabs, just like any other municipality. Would it be possible, like, there's nothing stopping us from proceeding with the conversation and developing community partnerships, as well as investing in order to look at a multi-purpose use community facility project in Dundalk without applying for this grant application. There's nothing stopping us from proceeding with our community action plan and our Horizon Place March for a multi-use facility. The conversations can still go forward. I comment, I can't support it, knowing that if we get the grant and we decide, nope, the community doesn't, we haven't had the conversation, and the community says, you know, you better not move the municipal offices to Dundalk, you've got to pull that out, and you've got to pull this out, and we're, what are we getting for the grant? Because the grant may be based on the contingency that we're amalgamating the municipal office with that, and when you pull that out, after the application goes in, and if we're successful and you pull that out, then they say, well, that's not what you submitted.
Dave? And then
So,
Jason.
I guess, no, I heard a comment a bit earlier about the 1.9. If we apply and we don't get it, somebody else is getting it. I mean, it's free money to whatever municipality tells the best story. This is very similar, this application is not much further in development than we did with the library. And we got $1 million library for $300,000. So I think, we spin the wheel, we get our chances between now and then 12. Do we want a municipal building in or out? We can decide that, but I think we need to decide whether we're gonna do this or not. And if we are, we need to start developing it. We can massage the application and take some stuff out, but we need to start working on it next week. Or not, and focus on what we're gonna focus on.
Jason?
Just wondering, we had on this that in Dundalk, can we not just put in Southgate? And then if we, just think we're Southgate
Yeah.
municipality, so.
Yeah. I can explore that with, they like a location, I'll explore that with the advisor, or the advisor from that ministry. Do we take a patch of land down at the Eco Park and slap it all down there? I don't know, or, places that tend to be building new community facilities for municipal offices tend to go where commerce is. And, if you make a trip to Dundalk, are we asking people to come to do their commerce there and do their municipal business there? And maybe that would be less effective to the environment, not more.
Okay, thank you. There's been lots of questions, more than the couple that were allowed, or the 5 minutes per person. It's been a good conversation, but I think it's time to call the question. So, all those in favor? Opposed? It's lost. Okay, consent items. Be it resolved, council approve the items on the regular business consent agenda dated October 16th, 2019. Save and accept. Anyone want to pull any of those, or just comment on them? Comment, okay. So,
Point of clarification, we can comment on any of the
Yep.
reports, you're just asking for a mover and seconder as to whether or not we're gonna pull any for amendments. And if nobody wants to pull any, I would move that we just accept them and we can comment as we need to.
okay,
And
But-
if I may,
Yep.
I know we are really close to the end, but maybe just in case, a motion to go past.
That's what I was going to
10.
do
Okay.
before we actually do this motion, entertain a motion to go past 10. So Barb will move it, Martin will second it. Discussion, all in favor? That's carried. So then, didn't see any items wanting to get pulled, so I need a mover and seconder for the consent. Brian and Michael? Okay, any comments on any of these three? Michael?
Yeah, I'm just kind of curious on the water for the arena. $892 for the arena for the water bill. I just wonder why it's so high when the arena's shut down for the summer.
I have to check into it, but, I know they've had issues with running toilets over the past, and, I would have to get a bit more detail, but I I know it's been an issue over time at times, so.
Okay, Barb?
Through the chair, to that point though, would this be, because I had a similar question, this is, the invoice date is September, so it would be for a period prior to that. And I know that at one point, there was no water on at the arena for a few days because of the construction, so I'm not certain either. So I had a question with regard to, no, I didn't. Yes, great. Same thing, check register. There's a charge for Warden Up to Grove. What would that be for? And if you can share it. It was for $350. It's not significant, I just,
That was for an employee consultation regarding the leave.
Any other questions or comments on those three items? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. Thank you. We have no closed session. County report. The planning thing that we already talked about was one of the main. There wasn't a whole lot on the agenda. I don't know if you have anything, Brian. I can't think of anything that was, this time there wasn't anything that really was about Southgate. The Councillor McQueen pulled his notice of motion re the beds for Grey Gables because it was a redundant motion that was already in place and didn't need to do it again. The Long-Term Care Committee has recommended looking at a building design that would add 96 beds. But again, we have to look at numbers and things like that. We got a bit of a report yesterday with the numbers for building between that and Rockwood Terrace, and it's 25 million at least for buildings, and then there'll be the yearly update. So we'll see where that goes, but at least they're looking at it. So that was those were the main two things. Okay. Confirming bylaw. Oh, members' privilege. Well, I was trying to get done by 10. Members' privilege. I guess the big news is that Holstein, as our deputy mayor calls it, the Holstein Mall now has a liquor store in it. So that's one of the small places that's been granted that license. So they're moving up. It's good to see the new owners are trying different things and doing things. So once we get the bridge across, hopefully everything will pick up well for them. Anyone else have any? Barb? Yep.
thank you. Some of it is actually related to the October 10th council information package, and I just want to clarify, I can just comment on a couple of those at this point in time. We don't have a spot to do that. The Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing Correspondence for second units, is it possible to have that put out there for our residents as a social media, some kind of information? It was, it's a 1.12 on the October 10th council information package, and it just explains, it's a guide for people who may be considering a second unit in their existing home.
Through mayor, members of council, I am working on a report for that for next,
Thank you.
hopefully the next council meeting that's coming.
Okay. And the 1.18, the OSED Regional Youth Conference, the OSED stands for Ontario Students Against Impaired Driving. We have 2 youth from our community who are working with other youth in Huron-Perth and Grey Bruce, organizing the Leadership and Awareness Conference. It's going to be held in the Blue Mountains, November 12th to 14th. Registration is $175, and that includes accommodations and meals at the resort. So it's a pretty good deal, and it's a great opportunity for youth, high school youth, to attend. We're trying to get the word out through the Youth Action Committee and getting it posted perhaps through Seattle Allies and the youth, they're approaching other community organizations to help maybe bring that cost down, so it's not too burdensome for parents, but we'll see how that goes. Thank you.
Anyone else with good news celebration? Seeing none, no closed meeting, and now be it resolved, council, be it resolved the bylaw 2019-150 being the bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the council of the corporation of Southgate at its regular meeting held October 16th, 2019, be read a first, second, third time, finally passed, signed by the mayor and the clerk, and sealed with the seal of the corporation, entered into the bylaw book. Mover, Jason, and Barb. Discussion? All in favor? Carried. And I'd entertain, Brian just moved a motion to adjourn. So, we're done. Thank you.
Proposed ATV trail. That was supposed to be in this agenda. West Bay ATV Club. It's not on Jen's agenda. Better language. Yes. You guys have paperwork? So did it not get on the agenda?
You got your money first.
Yeah, it should be on this agenda. That's what I wanted to know.
Yes, you are.
No, like when I'm sending it, I want it on here out there. I try and sign it direct. See, that's what confusing.
Before the thing
I don't think
gets-
we should be doing it. Wait till, start talking about it, nobody, the public knows it's not up there.
So another hangout and find out what's gonna happen again.
Yep.
Yeah.